to be fair, Manchester United fans have been served up some right guff in the last 10 years. And they've also had managers that have tried to defend players regularly, which is the right way to go about it. I played in a dressing room under a manager who would defend his players to the hilt. But there gets to a point whereby managers are being booted out of the club and the players are still staying year after year after year, regime after regime. And I think Amorim's thinking it's either you or me, and I'm going to go for you lot. What I think it is, it's really bad for Marcus Rashford. Because it's a stain on his character. If someone's saying that about you on a regular basis, that he's not training well, he's not being professional, his standards are low, I mean, it's really damning on him. And I don't believe, I worked with Marcus Rashford, it was a number of years ago now, but I don't believe inherently he is that individual when he was coming through at United. But I haven't seen him, obviously, in the training pitch in the last few years. And
we'll get back to Gary in just a quick second. But remember, if you like this video, please like, share and subscribe. And don't forget to click the notification button so that you know when the next Big D video hits. And also, if you've got something that you want to say, please put it in the comments. I read all of the comments. Now, in this video, Gary Neville and Jamie Carragher are going to be reacting to the shocking comments that Ruben Amorim made that he'd rather play his goalkeeping coach than Marcus Rashford, or at the very least that's what he alluded to, which it's plain to see that's what he was talking about anyway. And they make some really interesting comments, but I'll let you see what they've got to say, and then afterwards I'm going to be talking about some of the things that they're talking about here and making some interesting observations about the importance of having a disciplinarian coach. Here's Gary.
They go to Fulham, they grind out a victory, and afterwards he stole all the headlines with his line about he'd rather play his 63-year-old goalkeeping coach Vital, Jorge Vital, before playing a player that doesn't give the maximum. And that was an answer to a question distinctly about Marcus Rashford, and hence all the newspapers put it together and say, I'd rather play a 63-year-old than Marcus Rashford. Where are you with these kind of sound bites?
You know what? I've got to be careful because I think I was critical of Amorim with the comment about saying Manchester United were the worst team in maybe the history of the club or something. And I've questioned other players at different times on shows with Gary, Monday Night Football. And it's not that I'm rowing back on that. It's just the fact that I sometimes think, we're in the media. We lap this up. So I sometimes think, should I be saying, this guy shouldn't say that or he shouldn't do that? Now, what I would say is in terms of being in the media and not being a Manchester United fan, I think it's great in that, there's something to talk about. We're talking about it. It's a quote that'll go everywhere. And I think the guy's clever enough and charismatic enough in press conferences to know exactly what his words are saying and the effect they're going to have. I don't think this is a case of this guy getting misquoted. His English is really good. He's sharp. He's switched on in the press conferences. I think he never gives an answer where you think, oh, he didn't quite understand the question there. As we've seen with a lot of foreign managers. So he knows exactly how he's going about it. So I think we're going to enjoy him over the next couple of years in terms of stuff that he's going to say. Now, but if I was a Manchester United fan or this was a Liverpool manager, I think I'd have my head in my hands a little bit thinking, oh, everyone's going to jump on this. Everyone's going to, this is going to be a big story for the next few days. We need to start to quieten things down and not be on the back page of every newspaper every week. So from my point of view, I think it's great. I can understand Gary might be a little bit frustrated with it, but I think we've just got to get used to this guy coming in. This is how he's going to go about it. He's really good in the press conference. He speaks really well. And now and again, he's probably going to overstep the mark or say something that maybe he regrets. Because I think he came out last week and said, I'm a young man. Sometimes I say things, I make mistakes. But he didn't seem that disappointed. He was actually laughing on the back of that. And I just think this is Ruben Amorim and we're getting to know him. And this is how he's going to go about it.
Gary, where are you on the Rashford comment?
I mean, look, I if you remember on this podcast probably 2 months ago now, I pointed out when Rashford went to New York.
Yeah.
If you remember, I said at the time, I thought that might get him off to a bad start with his new manager.
You asked him about it. You actually asked Amorim about it, didn't you?
I did. And to be fair, Amorim said that he blamed the club at the time for not preventing him from going, rather than saying it was the players' fault. Obviously, Casemiro and Rashford both went. But what was clear is that they thought that shouldn't be happening in the future. So he set out clearly that he didn't like the idea of him going. So obviously he played him in the first game. It's something's materialised over the next few days, whether he's not turned up for training, he's been ill, he's not trained well. All those things are sort of, if you like, been rumoured. All I would say is, more than anything, is... Look, I think Ruben Amorim is obviously going to shoot from the hip. He's going to say what he feels and he's going to say what he wants. And to be fair, Manchester United fans have been served up some right guff in the last 10 years. And they've also had managers that have tried to defend players regularly, which is the right way to go about it. I played in a dressing room under a manager who would defend his players to the hilt. But there gets to a point whereby managers are being booted out of the club and the players are still staying year after year after year, regime after regime. And I think Amorim's thinking, it's either you or me, and I'm going to go for you lot. What I think it is, it's really bad for Marcus Rashford because it's a stain on his character. If someone's saying that about you on a regular basis, that he's not training well, he's not being professional, his standards are low, I mean, it's really damning on him. And I don't believe, I worked with Marcus Rashford, it was a number of years ago now, but I don't believe inherently he is that individual when he was coming through at United. But I haven't seen him obviously in the training pitch in the last few years, and it's a difficult situation because if he doesn't get out of the club in the next 7 days, which he's got 7 days to get out of the club to go on loan, which I think they're probably trying to force him out. They must be trying to force him out and go on loan and get him out of the changing room and out of the training ground. That can be the only tactic of speaking like this. So for me, I hope for two reasons. I hope Amorim gets Marcus out because he obviously wants him out, and I hope for Marcus's point of view he can go and play football somewhere else and have a great finish to the season and get his career back on track, because I think it's sad for both parties.
But they're trying to force him out, Jamie, obviously. But at the same time, they're making it really hard for him to go, because if you're a club wanting to buy him, you're not going to jump at the chance of somebody who apparently does this, apparently doesn't do this, and doesn't do this, and doesn't give their maximum. So they're kind of making it... I mean, it feels like Amorim's just like, it's not my problem. I'm going to say what I want. So Jim Ratcliffe, you get him out, because I don't want him. But good luck getting him out.
Well, yeah, and I think that, you know, the powers that be will be a little bit looking at Amorim and thinking, come on, mate, do us a favour. We're all supposed to be part of a team here. You know, we need to move him on. I said this last week on the back of what he said about, you know, the worst Man United team. I could imagine, you know, whoever's above him, Barada, sort of saying, you know, that's not the language we want from a Manchester United manager. Come on, we're trying to get Rashford out. They're negotiating with teams and they can say, well, your manager's just said this. And I think even on the back of calling them the worst team, there's obviously not just Rashford. There's probably other players they're trying to get out, you know, maybe in this window or in the summer. And it's hard to negotiate and tell these other clubs that, you know, you want a certain figure for them. And you say, well, you said they were the worst team in Man United's history. Yeah. You know, so how can you demand this type of money? So but I think I said this to Gary, I don't know if it was on air or off air, but I think whether we were speaking about Rashford, and I said straight away, Amorim will say, this is not my problem. This is a Manchester United problem. It's not my problem. I didn't give him the contract. I don't want him. You fix it. You've brought me to manage this squad. I'm telling you right now, I don't want that player with me. That's your problem. You gave him the contract.
I think he'll be sought after, Rebecca.
In the next 7 days? Well, they've had 3 weeks and nobody's come after
I know, but I suspect there's some haggling going on about how much he'll take in the drop in wages, whether Manchester United will contribute. I suspect there's things going on. I would imagine that, to be fair, there aren't many...
Like where?
Well, look, there aren't many clubs, there aren't many strikers available that you know could have an impact on the last part of your season that basically you wouldn't have to pay 30, 40, 50, 60, 100 million for. Rashford, in a rich vein of form, switched on, is a hell of a threat, and he can score goals. So if I was a club, I'm talking now probably out of the Premier League, you know, in Italy or Spain, thinking, you know, if we could get him right for 4 months and we can get his wage down to an acceptable level, actually this is well worth a pump, because we might be struggling to score goals and we need something to inject into our season. So I think there will be takers. I don't think there'll be a lack of takers.
Well, that's going to be interesting, isn't it? We've got a week or so left until February the 3rd of the January transfer window to see where Marcus Rashford ends up. And also, like you say, how much money of that 300-ish grand a week Manchester United have to pay. Maybe it'll end up a little bit like the Raheem Sterling situation where he went right at the end and Chelsea are paying a lot of his wage. Okay, go on, Gary.
No, I was saying, basically, the other club will want to pay 200. United will say, well, okay, Marcus, you need to take a wage cut. Marcus will say, no, you need to subsidise it. And there'll be a three-way, basically, wrangle going on about basically who's paying for what, and they might all have to compromise in the middle. Marcus takes a slight cut, United pay a little bit, and then the other club pay obviously some of it as well.
You know, I find it quite interesting sometimes when you see managers leave clubs and join new clubs as well, because Sporting were purring like a Ferrari under Ruben Amorim. They were smashing teams. They were winning league titles in Portugal. And, fair enough. It's not the best league in the world. But they were still smashing what they had in front of them. And they beat Man City. Was the Man City game Ruben Amorim's last game? It was one of his last games for Sporting Lisbon. And, they were doing really well. But then, since he's left, they've nosedived. And you've got to ask yourself, why is that? Well, the only differentiator is the coach. So when they had Amorim, because it's still the same team, they haven't had, a chance to change anything really. Certainly not the playing personnel. So they had Amorim, they were smashing everything. Amorim leaves, and they've nosedived. So there's clearly something there with Amorim. Now, the same thing happened with Alex Ferguson and Manchester United. Alex Ferguson left. We got David Moyes in, and the standards nosedived. So it might be a good thing that Ruben Amorim has come in, and he's drawn a line in the sand. He's set a marker, and he's said to those players, and he's saying to those players week in, week out, with comments like this about rather playing the goalkeeping coach. That's him communicating to the players, to the fans, to the board, that this is the standard that I expect, and you need to rise to this standard or you don't play. That's it. You don't play. And when a manager comes in and does that, it takes time to get everyone on board, to filter out all the bad apples, so to speak, weed everyone out that's not interested in doing this, that just want to sort of coax along, the fair weather players and whatnot. It takes time to get everyone on board and striving towards those standards. And Manchester United and Manchester United fans have been too used to now, over the past 10 years, a new manager coming in, it being really good for 6 months, 12 months, even 18 months. And then when the going gets tough, things nosedive. Because when the going gets tough, it's the standards that are set that carry you through the hard times. So Alex Ferguson set the overall standard, and he signed players that were on board with that standard. He signed Wayne Rooney, he signed Roy Keane, he trained Giggs, Scholes, the Nevilles from youth to rise to those standards, so that it got to a point where the players ran the dressing room in a positive way. Ferguson could step back and he would delegate a lot of these tiny details to some of the senior players. Like he would often, ask Ryan Giggs what the situation was, and he would ask Ryan Giggs or Gary Neville to have a word and things like that. And he would delegate a lot of his managerial duties to these guys in the end, because everything was, everything was working smoothly towards the end there. The end there with Alex Ferguson. So yeah, it could be a good time to finally really back a manager, because this is the first time really we've had a coach that's been this sort of harsh with the players. I can't remember Mourinho doing this, because I remember Mourinho coming in and he got everyone on side at first. Louis van Gaal, I don't even want to talk about Louis van Gaal, because he gutted a squad that didn't need to be gutted. Got rid of some really good players like Chicharito and the De Silva twins. Ollie kind of set a standard, but the wheels went off there. He got let down by some players. Erik ten Hag, I don't even want to talk about Erik ten Hag either, but I mean, I didn't want to see Ruben Amorim do this. I wanted to see him sort of slowly implement his style over a period of time and just get the wins and things like that. But I suppose we're just going to have to take our medicine and like it, really. And if we have to sacrifice Marcus Rashford for that, which I'm not bothered about, because he was crap under Erik ten Hag for 2 of his 3 seasons. So fair enough. And going back to what Gary said there, you know, he had a manager that defended his players to the hilt, and he did. But the thing is, Alex Ferguson was the be-all and end-all of the footballing project. Ruben Amorim isn't really the be-all and end-all of the footballing project at Manchester United, because it's much more of a corporate organisation now. So he'll have to liaise with Jim Ratcliffe and Omar Barada and you know, whoever the director of football is going to be. I mean, he'll still have a massive say, obviously, but yeah, I mean, point I'm making is Ruben Amorim doesn't get final say. So this is in fact very much a Manchester United problem, not necessarily the coach's problem, a Manchester United problem. And it's not Ruben Amorim's fault that the club gave Marcus Rashford that ridiculous contract, but at the same time, and I can understand why they did, because he was brilliant. He actually deserved that contract at that time, but he's just been coaxing along ever since then. So keeping things in-house, I don't know. I'm a bit old school. I don't know. Alex Ferguson used to criticise players in press conferences sometimes. I remember him criticising Cristiano Ronaldo and Wayne Rooney, when Wayne Rooney was coming out and releasing statements and things like this and saying that he wanted to leave Man United. So, fair enough. But, yeah. But anyway, what do you guys think? Was Ruben Amorim right to say what he said? Is it a Manchester United problem? Is it a Ruben Amorim problem? Thoughts in the comments as always, and I'll see you in the next one.